There it is. There it is. All right, we're on.
We on?
All right. Well, we'll skip the intro. I'm having a problem bringing it up. Good evening, everybody. You're welcome. Welcome to The Doctors Are In. We are here with Dr. Thomas L. Brown, Bishop in the Lord's Church, Bishop Esternine Hyman, and your host, Dr. Stephen E. Gardner. We're here because we want to do what we call is a special Independence Day edition to The Doctors Are In, a special Independence Day edition. And so the question that behooves us is this: does the liberty and freedom that is celebrated by all Americans, or should I say celebrated in America, quote unquote, July the 4th, does that really apply at the time that the celebration began? Was the Negro or the African American or the Black American or whatever you want to call it, were they a people that liberty had in mind? And if so, where is it at? And if not, why does it still remain? Now, I know all that is bad English. I mean, I just busted syllables, broke verbs. The truth is, does the liberty that America celebrates on Independence Day, is it still applicable to all Americans, specifically African Americans? So I just want to put that out there. And I want any of you that want to delve into it before we look at parts of a speech that Frederick Douglass wrote on the meaning. So this is not just something we're coming off the cuff, but the meaning, what it meant to the slave at the time that the 4th of July was celebrated. So we'll get into that. Dr. Brown, anything you want to kick us off with?
Yeah, I just, is it all right if I can signify a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that all right, Dr. Hyman?
We're live.
That's good.
We're live.
Okay, now y'all know where I'm gonna come. Didn't it just be a week or so we started celebrating Juneteenth?
Well,
now think about that dynamic. Here we are now talking about July the 4th, and at the same time we are discussing what was Frederick Douglass' place in that space, and what is our place today, that just now the 20th Juneteenth has become considered a national celebration. I think this is all about, again, the propaganda and the ability of our democracy that markets, that does an excellent job in marketing a people that it benefits economically. The thing of what we're talking about for Frederick Douglass and in regard to that Independence Day, it became a celebration. It became a celebration of what I call evil, but it was glorified evil. Now that's the nonsense in my saying. It was a glorified evil. And at the same time, we just finished celebrating another glorified evil called Juneteenth, because they, quote, liberated us by saying no more slavery. But even to this day, we have another practice in our democracy that's more oppressive than the slave dynamic. It's on our mind. We are caught in a consciousness of fear and a consciousness of not being able to love one another. We are busy not trying to unify. We're busy trying to dignify. I'm better than another. That's my 1 cent word. I know you didn't ask for that.
No, that's a good preface. Dr. Hyman, do you have a preface to put out there before we plow through this?
I think we should go ahead and plow, but I think we should make a disclaimer that you may hear some things that you don't necessarily like, maybe some things that you don't agree with. You may hear some things that you have been sensing and you know down in your knower that it's right. And you may get confirmation of those things on tonight. I think it is important that our people understand that our liberation in this hour is not just Jesus died on the cross and Jesus saves. Our liberation is when we embrace the truth of who we are, what God has orchestrated and ordained us as a people to do and be. And when we know the truth about our oppressors, whom we often idolize and copy and mimic and desire affirmation and validation from.
Okay.
Very important that we are cognizant of these things as we get in our very robust discussion.
Oh, it's going to be robust. It's going to be robust.
Robust.
That's right. Let me, you know, Dr. Brown kind of stirred the pot when he tried to bring Juneteenth in, and we're going to talk about Juneteenth too. So I'm going to talk, I'm going to put my 2 cents in about Juneteenth before we get to the letter. My question is, did they throw a dog a bone by making Juneteenth a national holiday to lull Black folk to sleep? So we give you this day, and now going back to sleep. It was an appeasement. Do y'all think that it was an appeasement, or do you think Juneteenth has any redemptive value, or should this be a movement that should be practiced not just on certain days, but every day? I'm asking a question.
I'm going to say something, and my sister has helped me when she made a disclaimer. I'm going to say something, and get ready, and your listeners, come back with your questions. The colonized Christians gave us Jesus to appease us. They didn't give us the truth of the Christ, and I don't even like the word that because those are Western terms. They gave us a Jesus to appease us, but they never gave us the teachings of that he truly gave us with his disciples and ourselves, because everything he taught was to build unity among ourselves.
Okay. All right. So they gave
I like it.
Should it be should I disclaim? You're talking about they give us Juneteenth or whatever, but they gave us, I hear it so often, they gave us Jesus on Sunday to shout about, but Monday through Saturday, we could not unite. We could not do unto others, each other, as we would have others to do unto us. We did not work on building collectively. We did not work on not casting our pearls before swine. We did not work on the various teachings of the parables that build our own collective economic base.
Okay. Dr. Hyman, you want to follow up with anything on that?
No, let's go and jump on in it.
Okay. All right.
That's heavy by itself.
All right. I'm going to pull up an excerpt from the letter of part of the speech that that Frederick Douglass gave back in 1852. And let me pull it up. Where is it at? Let me find it real quick.
Yeah, while you're looking for that, I think this year seems like Juneteenth. Was it somewhere like right around Father's Day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's that's something. Given that, your first thought is kind of like, okay, why is this like right here? We get the whole 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, and we know we're still 2 years there before Lincoln got himself together. Not exactly sure what swayed him, because the same Lincoln was still calling folks the N-word, and saying that they should not be included in the Constitution because they were different, they were inferior. I'm not sure what went on under the table that took 2 years for this legislation to even go through and for him to change his mind. But it certainly is interesting, that even the way it falls even on Father's Day, right behind Father's Day, since they say we don't have any, and what's wrong with us is absentee fathers, and all this other stuff, all they're right there together. It's just very, very interesting. That we're, the way it failed this year, and all of a sudden, well, maybe not all of a sudden, but we kind of got the legislation through this year on the heels of anti-Asian hate laws.
Look at that. Add to that, Bishop Hyman. Add to that, January 6th is an interesting experience that was never expected, and that January 6th became a nice little thing to give the liberals and the conservatives and the radicals in our democracy to again reach back and do what they do in a marketing way, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
And and everything seems to emerge, Dr. Gardner, out of violence. Everything emerges out of violence. Please tell me one thing that has emerged in America out of nonviolence.
Just our little civil rights movement, and even though we were nonviolent, they were still violent. And
there you
even
go.
after the assassination of our prophet, even after then, they got to go kill the man's mama and shoot her. Or who goes up in a church and shoots a black woman on an organ playing and serving? I mean, it's something wrong. It's something wrong when what is pathological is deemed as normal, and what we do that is normal is deemed as pathological. Somebody is delusional or somebody lying.
Okay.
Yeah. It sounds like what she said sound like kind of an echo out of how Frederick Douglass in his speech was coming forth, because he was living in the period, though he's in Rochester, but down in my sister state, Virginia, down in Kentucky, down in those places, that kind of destruction was taking place, and Frederick Douglass was up there saying to his audience, which had certain, basically these were females who themselves were oppressed. Now catch that. The women who brought him, they were under oppression, weren't they, Dr. Hyman?
Absolutely.
They were part of what they call the women's suffrage. Now I like how we use the language for my sisters of the white community. That was suffrage. Now for black folk, we were called savages.
My God.
Oh my goodness.
My God.
Oh.
With this whole law that was so juicy, with this whole Juneteenth, thank God for another holiday. For many years, many of us did not even know it existed. We did not know, many of us, until of late, that it existed. We didn't have any real celebration of the abolition of slavery. Some because we still in it. We still in the same system. That system is ironclad and is set in place. And the players change. And we change some laws and amend some laws. Amend the 14th Amendment, the 14th article. Amend that, amend it, all this amending. But the truth of the matter is, it was not written for us. It was not written with us in mind. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men means white male, not even humanity, are created equal. This is in rebellion to Europe. This is in rebellion to England, that we are not going to be ruled. What kind of spirit is that? We are not going to be dominated. We are not going to have nobody above us. We're all equal. Now the rest, the women, the blacks, the Indians, they are not a part of this equation. And although legislation has pushed to add this in, and now you got LGBTQRSTUVWX, and Z. Now I said my ABCs. Tell me what you think of me. We done added all of that on the heels of the 14th Amendment, and my people still ain't free. My people still ain't free. So we need to be careful. Hey, we get another holiday, so do the white folks. We get another holiday, so does everybody else. Okay, it's a holiday. It ain't even our holiday. Everybody gets the holiday. So we need to be very careful that this is not also another step in the process to water down the symbols of liberation, treating the brutalities, the casualties of racism as a crime of the past, rather than seeing it as an ongoing demonic system and a demonic practice. So, this is not no victory for us, because we are still in the fight, still oppressed by the system. So don't let us get happy and act like they with a knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This is a bone.
Oh my goodness.
This is a bone.
So here is the entire speech, The Meaning of the July 4th for the Negro by Frederick Douglass. Now, I'm not going to read the entire speech, but viewing audience, you can go and Google this. Google The Meaning of July 4th for the Negro by Frederick Douglass. Read it for yourself. This is a very good piece of information, so that you'll know from the position of someone who had basically, didn't he escape slavery?
Yes.
Yes, I believe he went on north.
Yeah,
yes, he escaped.
Yeah, he said, the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between the platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable and difficult to be overcome. In getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. But I want to go down. I want to go over to, I think it gets kind of rowdy here. He praises them on the one hand for not wanting to be up under Britain and not wanting to experience the tyranny of Britain. But then he comes right back and says that the same thing that you endured under Britain, you have subjugated the slave to as well. And so it's like, okay, the victim of the oppressor becomes the oppressed become the oppressor. And so it's like this generational cycle being passed down and nobody gets free. I'll leave that alone. We'll come back and talk about that in a minute. But oh yeah. And so let's see, where does he start? So we come over here to this section. Let's see if I can find it.
Oh, he got a scripture up in there by the rivers of Babylon.
He got scripture. I mean, you got to read this for yourself. Let's see, where does it begin? Yeah, he's quoting some verse there. Hold on.
Yeah, right out of Psalms. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read some of this. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. Mm-hmm. To forget them, to pass light over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make a reproach before God and the world. My subject then, fellow citizen, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view. Standing there identified with the American bondsman making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future.
That's heavy.
Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, and in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce with all the emphasis I command everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. Mm-hmm. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet not one word shall escape me, that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, who is not at the heart of the slaveholder, shall not confess to be right and just. Now, he said a mouthful right there. Dropping down. For the present,
that's it,
is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. Is it not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, and reaping all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals, brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men.
mm, mm.
Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty, that he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is that a question for Republicans? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter beset with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans dividing and subdividing a discourse to show that men have a natural right to freedom, speaking of it relatively and positively, negatively and affirmatively? To do so would be to make myself ridiculous, to offer an insult in your understanding. This is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him. What I am to argue, that is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant in their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with lash, to load their limbs with iron, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at the auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them in obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employment of my time and strength than such arguments would imply. Boy, he's stirring it up. But drop down here to this section right here. What to the American slave is the 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgiving, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him more bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace the nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than the people of the United States at this very hour. Now, this is just a portion of what Frederick said in 1852, July the 5th.
That is surely the inflammatory tongue of a prophet.
I ask a question. I'd like for Dr. Hyman to answer.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
Yeah, she's right. I go to her because there's an energy that she has. Why is it that everything is like men, when every male and female is human? Why can't we say all humans are created equal? Why we say all men are created? Why do we say in scripture all men? What is it in our psychic, Dr. Hyman, that keeps us from realizing that you, me, we are humans. We are human beings created by a divine being. How do we get constantly trapped in, and I appreciate what Brother Frederick Douglass was doing. He was articulating the words in the spirit of his time before women who were not men, but he's talking about what men, and I had to kind of chuckle because I think about when the master's feet hurt, the slave would say, "Master, we's feet hurt." It was like we attached his suffering, and there consequently could endure what was going on us, and could not see that our liberation was not exclusive. Our liberation was inclusive to his frustration. Am I off base, my psychologist?
No, sir, not at all. Um, Again, these are antiquated matriarchal systems. Even as we said, you know, these truths will be self-evident that all men are created equal. They literally were not talking about humanity. They were talking about the white males who stole this country, stole the land, dispossessed its inhabitants, took over, went across the water, got them some black people to do what they were too weak to do and did not know how to do. And so everything is to serve the white male interest. This is why, going back to our previous episodes, this is why this Christ figure has been made into their image. This Christ figure has been made into the image of those who are equal. They're not going to be ruled. They're not going to share that power. So none of that, that was intentional for white males. And white males have been given the status iconically through this religious Christ that they constructed. They have now been given a place psychologically that equates them almost with God. And so nobody overturns that. Nobody bucks that authority. Nobody else can get in that inclusiveness. Even despite the amending that 14th Amendment, it still is not quite right. And so we have used religion whenever you want to control a people, whenever you want to deceive a people, you use fear and religion. And so this keeps the women subservient. It keeps the women as helpmeets, which is also a gross mistranslation. It keeps the women as being created for the pleasure and the use of the man, and it creates black bodies being created for the pleasure, the use, and the wealth of the white man. And so until we see humanity as God intended it, both male and female created he them, and he called their name, male and female Adam, which means a human, a walking, talking spirit in an earth suit, a human, as you said, being, both humus and being or spirit. And so in order for us to properly mirror godness, it's got to be male and female together. And so we have been bamboozled, nations all over the world who have done this. They're patriarchal, and it is almost a type of everything else is supposed to worship. But the message of liberation, even of the Christ, the message of liberation is to put things back into God's original intention. We are human beings, not to be subjugated by somebody because of the lack of melanin or because they got a certain kind of gonads. God is not that superficial. No, sir, you on track.
So
we need to put that in writing.
Yeah. So Frederick Douglass was basically presenting a polemic.
Explain that, please.
Well, he was speaking in one sense satirical, with satire, that everything that they were celebrating on that day, they were being hypocritical about, because they were also keeping others in bondage while they were calling liberty, how can you have liberty and justice for all when you were only thinking of liberty and justice for what? You know, the white man at the time, while at the same time, many of these white men were slave owners that had people in chains that were on their plantation. So he was basically, he's speaking satirical, but he was very wise in how he did it. He didn't just come out and hit them head on in the head. He kind of warmed up to it and then laid it all out. That's what I mean by polemic.
Yeah, he did a little big switch there. Listen at the language. I mean, the language is so colorful. The language is so emotional. Evoking certain emotions. Dr. Brown talked about their violent nature. Their violent nature. We saw it in the storming of the Capitol. We saw it. You know, it's everywhere. You don't colonize without violence. You don't proselytize without violence. But listen at some of those words that he said, my good doctors. He said that this American system is marked with blood. That has not been eradicated. That has not been absolved. That has not been vindicated because it's still being marked with blood. Okay? It's talked about America's crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and renounced. Where are those prophets like this man? Where are those Black prophetic voices like this man? Where are those preachers and advocates like this man? Who we talking right during the abolition of slavery and all of this? We're talking right there. I mean, it's still very heavy. And he's in front of almost a totally white audience. And he does this bait and switch. And he is saying America's crimes against God first and humanity must be proclaimed and renounced. Why aren't we doing this? Why is he not afraid to do this in the 1800s on the heels of the Emancipation Proclamation? Why is he not afraid when they were still lynching and carrying on? But here we have a little more safety. Why are we not doing this? Because we've assimilated. We have assimilated. We think if we proclaim and renounce, then we are some kind of fascist or some kind of Marxist, or we're traitors and guilty of treason and all kinds. This is the stuff Jeremiah Wright was doing, and they killed him. They tried to kill. I mean, not pow, but you know, you might as well have. So why aren't we doing this? He said these are crimes to disgrace a nation of savages. He called them a nation of savages. Did we not see savage behavior storming the Capitol? Yet we are portrayed as 3/5 of a human. Coons, niggers, niggas, apes. Come on here. And we are lazy and shiftless and cannot produce anything good in society, yet we can make them wealthy. And so the narrative has switched. It is what we call in psychology projection. You know how a projector works? You put the film in, you can tell we old up here. You put the film in the projector, right? Like that. Or, you know, in this way. And then what's in it is cast on a wall very big or on a screen very big. It's the same thing we do at the movies now. That's what projection is. And so what is on the inside of them, which they call criminal, violent, disgrace, savage, has been projected onto us at a very large scale. And we done drunk that Kool-Aid, believing that about ourselves, but believing them to be somehow close enough to God to teach us how to worship God. Something ain't right. What we gonna do about this, doctors? Where are prophets?
Well.
Thank you, sis.
No, I'm serious. Where are prophets? Where are advocates?
Well, you
And
know,
we have a few, but none that's going to call out America's crimes against God and nature and renounce it. None that's going to call this behavior savage. We call this patriotism, but we're considered savage when we take a knee or kneel at a football game during the national anthem. Something ain't right.
well, first of all, you got to lie to everybody. Number one, we have been taught such a lie about independence here in America that you have to lie to everybody to get them to the point that if someone does take a knee, that they're going to view them as a non-patriotic automatically. You have to build that lie into people to begin to get them to emulate or to mimic, your points of view. And so,
wait a minute, did you say build the lie?
Yeah, you got to build it.
Not tell the lie.
You got to build it. You got to build it in people to where they accept it. They accept, okay, well, though they're not being very patriotic at all. Yet if black and white really knew what Frederick Douglass was saying about the hypocrisy of the nation, if this was really known and broadcast, put out in history books, there might be a different tenor about the celebration of Independence Day. It might be a different look as to what is really patriotic and what is non-patriotic. I would say that it was non-patriotic for people on the one hand to celebrate the liberty of a nation that they stole, and at the same time keep these slaves that you have in your backyard, and to gain all this money no tax-free labor. I say that's more non-patriotic than someone taking a knee.
My.
That's non-patriotic.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's that word patriotic. It's an interesting term, and I'm sure both and all of us, but patriotism that is historical to America is almost genocidal behavior of 21st century Hitler type thing. You come and you remove people, my native brothers and sisters, human brothers and sisters, we call Indians. You totally send them through a Holocaust and genocide or whatever other words we use. And then we are able to fight the British, which we're still connected with, believe it or not. And we're saying great patriotism. Does patriotism create violence? Is it patriotic to be violent? Yes. Is it patriotic to push and oppress people? Yes. Well, then, if that's patriotic, what's the opposite of patriotic that would make us loving, kind, and community and helping folk? What is the opposite of this patriotism that has perpetuated oppression on people and has been violent, as you have, Sister Hyman, been so eloquent in stating? Now, what's the opposite? What is nonviolent behavior? Is that patriotism or is that Christ-likeness? I'll throw that in there.
It ain't patriotism.
So we really don't know what Christ-centered patriotism really is.
I don't think there's any such animal, is it?
It isn't, because you cannot. That's see what they've called those believers that have tried to mix. That's why I said it. Tried to mix this. It's called Christian nationalism, and it does not have a place. Christian nationalists say that you're being non-patriotic, you're not honoring God, and you're not honoring the flag. Look, I'm probably the most patriotic person that you find on here that spent all the years that I spent in the military.
Yes.
So, you can't tell me that I'm not a patriot. But the bottom line is I'm woke. And so, and my eyes is open to lies that have not just hindered African Americans, but it's hindered all Americans. It's that's what
absolutely
with something that has the whole populace held hostage. The whole populace is in bondage because of a lie. And the words of Frederick Douglass calls the lie and the liars out front and calls them to give an account.
And why aren't we still calling the lies and the liars and calling for them to give an account?
You know why, sister? Because we want to be real nice. We want to be soft.
Y'all want to be Christian.
Palatable. We want to be fruit. We want to be fruit bearing, Christ Christians. And we don't want to make any waves. We want to move past all this. Can we all just get along? We want to be able to do all those very nice, flowery and palatable things. And yet at the same time, you got roaches underneath your carpet. You got
what about just
the wall, huh?
What about just we want to be accepted by the oppressor. We are seeking to be accepted, approved. It's like when folk go to church. All of us know the dynamic. Come to church and be accepted by Christ. Well, I have a different theology of that, or let's say an observation. When I come to a fellowship and worship, I don't say come to be accepted by Christ, because once you acknowledge that you are a child of God, you have been accepted. Learn how to accept your acceptance by the divine. And the same thing operates in the kind of experiences of our styles, as we want to be accepted by the oppressor. Now, the Heavenly Father is not our oppressor, but the way we deal with our ministries, we put the ministries in between the persons we call to Christ, and we put it in kind of what my dad used to call it, a theocracy. Now that's a whole nother. You understand what I'm talking about, Sister Hyman?
Yes.
I mean, what you've got Christians right here in America that believe that America is supposed to be a theocracy.
Oh yeah.
And so that's why, and that is part of the understanding of or the premise about Christian nationalism.
Well, see, the reality becomes, as you and I talk, as we dialogue, we know we're not seeking to be accepted by the oppressor. We're not seeking to, we already know that we are accepted within, I'll use the word, I don't use it this way. We already accepted in our faith in the divine creator. We already know I'm accepted. Now, when you come to the realization that you have been accepted, you must be able to help others to know that as I interact with you, I want you to know you already accepted by your faith, but here's what you must do to continue to reach out to others. And not make us competitive, but show us how to be cooperative, because working together works. And when accepted people work together, it will work over any oppression.
I can't argue against that.
Preach, Brown, preach.
I ain't preaching.
I got my handkerchief.
Gotta
throw it. All right. We're getting close to an hour of our time today. I realized that this whole thing about Frederick Douglass's letter was cage rattling and probably disturbing for others, especially those who have succumbed to a certain style of Christianity that's mild and mild mannered. I call it the Clark Kent Christianity, mild mannered. But how can a mild mannered Christianity occur when I look at the Christ of the scripture was very revolutionary? That he was really, he was really addressing some of the injustice and some of the proponents of injustice even in his day. And he was a prophet. And so prophets do make waves, as it were, but prophets are not popular. Now that goes back to the thing, is that the reason why, a message like this is not, wholesale accepted or wholly accepted, is because why? It's a prophetic message. It's one that rattles a cage. It's one that gets under your skin. It's one that makes you mad. It's one that makes you want to point your finger. It makes you want to do something because it's shocking enough for you to realize, you know what? I've been sold a lie, so I've got to try to find some way to keep this lie. So I'm going to try to put it back off on you. I'm going to try to make you evil. You're the savage where I am really the savage, And so, but those are things that we have to do. And the thing about it is that even John the Baptist, we as Christians, we celebrate John the Baptist. Even Jesus said he was the greatest born among women, greatest prophet. He was the greatest. I'll put it like this so y'all can test this out. He was the greatest prophet of the Old Testament. A lot of folk believe that John the Baptist was of the New Testament. Wait a minute, now the New Testament wasn't even written when Jesus came on the scene, or when John the Baptist, it was still Old Testament time. Don't get me started up in here. Anyway,
why don't you call it? It was the First Testament. I'm just messing
First
with
Testament.
You.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that could be that probably has been 4 or 5 testaments. We just don't have all the facts in the writings of the Western boys. Don't pay no attention to me.
The truth is that most of us have this. We have been taught to separate the testaments anyway, and when the testaments are separated, because John the Baptist appeared in New Testament literature, the assumption is that he was of the New Testament. No, he wasn't. He was of the Old Testament. He was of the First Testament, of the Hebrew scripture.
Well, see, you done said something here about separating these testaments. These are compilation of books that people voted on. As a former Catholic, we had way more than 66 books. We had the Apocrypha, we had the books of wisdom, all of that. And now we got this New Testament and the Old Testament, and now you all are called New Testament Christians. Another fancy term, your brethren and sisterin of lesser hues done constructed. And now they have divorced you from your history, sitting up all through from Genesis to maps. They done divorced you of your history by separating those texts to tell you that that same God that killed people from monkeying with his children don't exist no more. He changed when little soft Jesus got on the cross. God changed, whole personality, everything changed. And so that separation is even used to oppress people, to keep our people docile and to keep our people from retaliating and claiming what is theirs. I'm telling you, the whole system is savage and corrupt, and we've used religion to seal the deal. And we done bought it hook, line, and sinker and got the nerve to fight each other like cats and dogs because they done dropped the bone. We done ate it and drunk the Kool-Aid, and we fighting each other over who's right about the slave master's religion. Lord, help us here today.
Wow. Who's right about the slave master's religion? Wow.
We fighting over. We can't get together over religious stuff and ain't none of it out.
And Dr. Hyman and Dr. Gardner, the business of religion is an enterprise. And that's what we are facing, is an enterprise that has been successful for 200 years. It's an enterprise.
It absolutely.
And it's an enterprise driven by money, and money for that enterprise represents power. And when you pull out millions of paper money called dollars and set it on the fire, it ain't nothing. But
See?
right, but it represents power. It's an illusion of paper. Look how we're at, even when you have the conversation. So I got to get some paper. A dollar bill. You take a $10 bill, $100 bill, and you light it and it catches a fire, right?
Yep.
Now, is that power? But in the psychic. And when you talked about Frederick Douglass, you know what I was thinking about, Dr. Gordon, as we're getting ready to close? I think he probably had a conversation with the divine creator, and the creator says, okay, here am I, send me. And I think about Isaiah.
Yeah.
Because I think about Isaiah. Frederick Douglass was in a hell situation. And he went on because he was speaking to a group of people. At that time, Africans could not read or write, understand. But Frederick Douglass had mastered the oppressor's language.
Come on here.
And he presented, if he had 200 slaves standing in front of him and he articulated what he articulated, they wouldn't know the ham fat of what he was saying. Am I wrong or am I right? It's up to you.
Well, the thing about it is that he said what he said and didn't get lynched for it.
And you know why? Check it out. What's the psychology? People love to hear, Dr. Hyman, I'm getting ready to throw it back to you again.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, come on. Look at us in this 21st century. We love to see and entertain the violence, but it's like having a orgasm.
Well.
And there was silence in the house.
Yeah, sure was.
Let me look over my glasses on that.
You've been watching.
Y'all know, orgasms for some people are addictive.
Yeah.
It ain't about reproduction. It's about,
no.
It ain't about reproduction. It's about satisfying the addiction, the stimulation, and all of that comes even out of violence. This stuff ain't about reproducing.
Emotionalism of the psychic.
Okay. You have definitely been watching Doctors Are In. This is parental, what's it? Parental advisory.
PG, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
A no holds barred conversation as we continue our quest for the historical Jesus. We're not leaving a stone unturned to help people find and know the truth. Tonight, we talked a little bit about Frederick Douglass and what he had to say about July the 4th, which we all have celebrated and probably had picnicked and so on and so forth, not knowing what the backstory was behind the actual day. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing. Is that once you know the truth, you're now responsible for the truth that you know.
Yes.
We'll be back here next week at our new
At
time.
what time?
keep
What time?
9 p.m., right? 9 p.m. Eastern Standard
Okay.
Time.
Okay.
Y'all want to keep it at that, or y'all want to go back to the other?
How many viewers we got tonight? Any? Can they tell us if they have a preference?
Do y'all have a preference?
8 or 9?
Viewing audience, 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Somebody put it in the comments. We'll yield it to a Democratic vote.
Democracy at its finest.
There's about 7 people watching, so somebody is going to say something.
Right. We moved it to try to accommodate our precious brother, Dr. Walker, who is in an exciting class. We're so glad for him.
Okay, so we have 9 p.m.
Yeah. And so his class is going to take a little longer than we thought. So we moved it to 9 to accommodate him. We still missed him.
Okay, so we still got 2. We got the vote is in. Not two people said 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, do I have anybody else to say something different? All right. I know there's 8 people out there.
Well, just bring it on in 9, I guess.
Yep, 9. I got 4 people saying 9 p.m. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to keep it 9 p.m.
Right on.
This week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're out here in the West where I'm at, it's 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So God bless you. Pray for us. We want to keep it real. We're not playing with this thing. Our speech might be candid, but the truth will make you free. We'll see you again next week. Talk to you later.